It's Diabetes Alert Day. It's described as a one-day wake-up call that focuses on the seriousness of diabetes and the importance of understanding your risk. Marcy Wright, a diabetes outpatient program manager at UT Health East Texas, is joining us. Thanks so much for being here with us, Marcy.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess the first question really is, how do you identify your diabetes risk?
So there's different ways that you can do it. The very best way is to make sure you're established with a primary care provider. And the screening can be done, of course, at a yearly physical. There's certainly the opportunity to do an initial screening. You can do that online on the American Diabetes Association website, www.diabetes.org. They have a risk test there that you can take. It's kind of a preliminary risk type test to see if you meet some of the risk factors. And that can be a starting point before you see a physician to do a full assessment. So actually, when you're age 35 and older, they recommend American Diabetes Association, I should say, recommends that all adults be screened.
Okay, so Diabetes Alert Day truly is important when you consider that 38.4 million Americans, I mean, that's like 11.6% of the population here in the United States has diabetes.
Absolutely. I mean, think about that for a minute. You could line up almost 10 people and 1 out of 10 could have diabetes. I mean, that's how common it is in this country today. So yes, it's very prevalent right now. And I think when you look at Diabetes Alert Day, the real message here is that it's important, as prevalent as diabetes is now, to get screened, to see your primary provider regularly and get checked out. That yearly physical is a great starting point because diabetes doesn't have obvious symptoms that hit you over the top of the head. There's really nothing that says, okay, I have diabetes, like it does if you have a cold or the flu.
I think another thing that surprised me is there's like more than 8 million Americans that have no idea that they even have diabetes and are living with it.
Right. That's true. And that same risk test that's used to screen for diabetes can also be used to screen for pre-diabetes as well.
Can you explain what pre-diabetes is for people?
So pre-diabetes is basically, as it sounds, it's where your blood sugar is not high enough exactly to be considered diabetes, but it's high enough where it's not considered normal. Basically, it's what you'd consider to be insulin resistance. It's where your body's just not regulating the blood sugar the way that it once did. It is a whole series of things that are happening. Usually pre-diabetes exists along with other conditions like maybe your cholesterol is not where it needs to be. You may have high triglycerides, and you may have a low good cholesterol and high bad cholesterol, high blood pressure. Many people with pre-diabetes are overweight. So there's usually a lot of other health conditions going on that are creating multiple risk factors for diabetes. And a lot of times in people with pre-diabetes, we are recommending that they be screened yearly, in fact, for diabetes because it's such an incredible risk factor for the development of diabetes itself.
Can you prevent pre-diabetes from turning into the full-blown type 2 diabetes?
Certainly. Usually when we see individuals with pre-diabetes, one of the things that's often recommended is to start with a 7 to 10% weight loss, physical activity, a program of consistent physical activity, 30 minutes, 5 days a week can really help. Just making some small changes in eating habits. It can be something as simple as cooking some more healthy meals at home, less dining out, switching from drinks with sugar in them to sugar-free drinks, baking more of your meats versus frying, adding in more vegetables, things like that.
So there are a lot of lifestyle choices that you can make. Now, you've talked a lot about risk factors for type 2 diabetes. What are those? Like, what do people need to be changing in their lives so they don't have to be on, I'm guessing, insulin, right, for the rest of their lives?
So honestly, there's some risk factors for diabetes that are changeable. There's some that are not. Like some of the risk factors that you can change, I mean, being overweight, weight loss can help. If you have high cholesterol or high blood pressure, managing those conditions as best you can. If you're not being physically active, doing any kind of movement each day can really help increasing your number of steps. Those can help. Now, there's some risk factors that you just can't change. I mean, some folks have family members who have diabetes. Of course, we can't pick our parents, right?
Right.
So that's a risk factor you cannot change. Certain ethnic or racial groups have a higher risk of diabetes. So, African Americans, Native Americans, Latino, Asian Americans, we see a higher incidence of diabetes in those populations. As you get older, your risk increases. So, you're talking about that 11% of the population have diabetes, but when you start looking at 65 and older, it's more like 25%.
Wow.
So age really increases it, and that's something that nobody can change.
Right, yeah, just as you get older, a lot of things come along, right? A lot of different
That's
health
right.
concerns and issues. Can you break down the difference for us between type 1 diabetes and type 2 for people who don't really understand the intricacies of the two?
Sure. So in type 1 diabetes, that is about 5% of the population of people who have diabetes. It's more of an autoimmune disorder. And in people who are first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, typically what's happened there, it usually starts with something that triggers or sets off an immune response, like maybe they got a cold or the flu, they got sick, and their immune system, in addition to attacking the virus or the bacteria that made them sick, decided to go ahead and attack the cells in the pancreas that make insulin. And so, consequently, those individuals have no ability to produce insulin. So, upon being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, your medication from day one is insulin because you just don't have the ability to produce insulin and you don't have the ability to really regulate your blood sugar. So, that is the difference there. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disorder. Now, type 2 diabetes, over time, what happens is that there's insulin resistance as time goes on, and say a person has gained weight, their body just doesn't respond to insulin the way it once did. And the insulin production has to increase and increase and increase to regulate the blood sugar. And pretty soon, the cells in the pancreas that produce insulin just slowly die off. Now, by the time someone's diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, they've lost about 80% of their ability to produce insulin. Now, what that means is someone with type 2 diabetes, they can still produce some insulin and they still have some ability to regulate their blood sugar. So their medications can be a combination of multiple things. It could be diabetes pills, it could be injectable medications, that are taken once weekly. It could be insulin. There's a variety of medications that are available to people with type 1 diabetes, and that's about 95% of people with diabetes.
You talked a little bit about some of the symptoms being hard to really diagnose that it's diabetes. What are a few of them that people should maybe look out for if they're not feeling quite right?
So one of the things that we hear frequently in the clinic that people notice when they're first diagnosed and say that it was kind of their aha moment that something wasn't quite right, waking up during the night being extremely thirsty, more frequent trips to the bathroom that's disrupting their sleep, disrupting their work, blurry vision, where they're trying to read the paper or trying to read something on the computer, and maybe the image is clear in 1 second, and then in the next second it's just blurry. The image just kind of fades in and out. Sometimes people feel really hungry even when their blood sugar's high, or not hungry at all, just change in appetite. Really, really tired, just like they can barely go on. They get home and after work and immediately they just want to fall asleep. So those are some of the things that we will hear frequently.
It's good advice, good for people to know, because if it goes untreated for too long, it can be very dangerous, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's, I think, probably one of the biggest messages, I think, of Diabetes Alert Day. We talk about screening for people that are undiagnosed, but I think for people who already have it, I think the important thing is if your blood sugar's high and you're having trouble bringing it down, let somebody know. Let your doctor know. If you're established with a diabetes educator, such as someone like me, let us know. We want to help you. There's no reason to be struggling with high blood sugars when there's lots of great tools and healthcare to help you bring those down. We're here to help.
What can happen if it goes undiagnosed and you have really high blood sugar for a very long time?
Patients can get extremely dehydrated, and their electrolytes can become imbalanced. It can cause, if left untreated for too long, it can cause coma and even death. And now, honestly, at some point, most people are going to feel so bad, that they're going to be probably so profoundly dehydrated, or perhaps nausea, vomiting, and they're going to be seeking care in the ER. At some point, either they're going to notice or a friend or family member is going to notice.
So, Marcy, I think the big takeaways from Diabetes Alert Day are get with your doctor, find out your risks, and also don't let it go too long. If you're not feeling just right, go see your doctor and get some help.
That's correct.
All right, Marcy, well, I appreciate you being with us for Diabetes Alert Day and helping sort of explain what the day means and why we should all take it seriously.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Marcy.